My perfect husband turned out to be a pervert targeting our daughter's teenage friends. I kicked him out and helped with the criminal investigation. I, 39 female, have been married to Mark, 42 male, for 18 years. We met in college. It was a whirlwind romance. We got married just a year after I graduated, much to the concern of our families who thought we were too young. But we were in love and determined to prove everyone wrong. We have 2 children, Delilah, 16 female, and Tom, 14 male. Delilah was born just a year into our marriage. It was a difficult pregnancy and I struggled with postpartum depression afterward. Mark was supportive during that time, taking on extra responsibilities at home while also starting his career in finance. Tom came along 2 years later, completing our family. Over the years, our marriage had its ups and downs like any relationship. There were times when Mark's long hours at work put a strain on us. I gave up my budding career as a journalist to be a stay-at-home mom when the kids were young. It was a joint decision, but I sometimes resented the loss of my professional identity. As the kids got older, I went back to work part-time as a teacher. Despite the challenges, I always thought we were fundamentally happy and committed to each other. We still had date nights, family vacations, and seemed to be on the same page about raising our kids. Mark was always an involved father, coaching Tom's little league team and never missing one of Delilah's dance recitals. About 6 months ago, I started noticing some changes in Mark's behavior. He became more secretive with his phone, often taking calls in another room or quickly putting his phone away when I walked in. He started working late hours more frequently, missing family dinners. When he was home, he seemed distant and distracted. At first, I brushed it off as stress from work. Mark had recently taken on some big new clients and I knew he was under pressure to perform. I tried to be understanding and supportive, picking up more slack at home and with the kids. But as the weeks went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on. Then last month, my world came crashing down. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Mark's phone buzzed on the counter. He was upstairs showering, so I glanced at it, thinking it might be an important work message. Instead, I saw a text from Zoe, 18 female, our daughter Delilah's best friend. The message said, "I miss your touch so much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Zoe has been Delilah's best friend since middle school. She's been to countless sleepovers at our house, family barbecues, even vacationed with us once. She calls me Aunt Karen and I've always thought of her as a second daughter. The idea that something inappropriate could be happening between her and Mark seemed unthinkable. At first, I tried to convince myself I had misunderstood. Maybe it was an inside joke or taken out of context somehow. But over the next few days, I started paying closer attention and noticed other red flags. Mark would always find excuses to be around when Zoe came over to hang out with Delilah. He offered to drive her home multiple times, even when it was out of his way. There were hushed phone conversations that would abruptly end when I walked in the room. I hated myself for doing it, but I started snooping. I checked our phone records and saw dozens of calls and texts between Mark and Zoe at odd hours. One night when Mark was asleep, I managed to unlock his phone. What I found made me physically ill. There were hundreds of inappropriate texts between Mark and Zoe going back months. Sexual photos. Plans to meet up in secret. The worst part was seeing how Mark would constantly compare me unfavorably to Zoe, calling me old and boring while praising her youth and beauty. There were messages about how exciting their forbidden love was and how they couldn't wait to be together openly someday. I confronted Mark the next morning. He initially tried to deny everything, accusing me of invading his privacy. But when I showed him some of the evidence I had found, he broke down and admitted to the affair. He claimed it only turned physical after Zoe turned 18 a few months ago, but I have my doubts. The texts implied their friendship had been inappropriate for much longer. Mark begged me not to leave him, saying it was just a mistake and midlife crisis. He swore he would end things with Zoe immediately and go to counseling. But all I could think about was how he had betrayed not just me, but our entire family. How could he take advantage of a teenager who was supposed to be our daughter's friend? I worry about how long this grooming behavior may have been going on. I kicked Mark out of the house that same day. He's been staying with his brother and calling/texting constantly to beg for forgiveness. I haven't told the kids the full truth yet, just that their dad and I are having problems and need some time apart. I know I'll have to eventually, but I'm dreading breaking their hearts. I'm also grappling with how to handle the Zoe situation. Her parents have been close family friends for years. We've gone on couples trips together, celebrated holidays as extended family. Do I tell them what's been going on? Should I confront Zoe directly? I worry about her well-being, but I'm also so angry at her betrayal of my daughter's friendship. I've contacted a divorce lawyer and am trying to get my ducks in a row before I make any big moves. But I'm struggling to cope with all of this. How did I not see what was happening right under my nose? Were there signs I missed over the years? Looking back, I remember times when Mark seemed overly attentive to Zoe, complimenting her outfit, asking about her life and interests. But it never struck me as anything sinister. He was like that with all of Delilah's friends, playing the cool dad role. Now I question everything. I also can't help but wonder if this is somehow my fault. Did I let myself go? Become too focused on the kids and not enough on my marriage? Mark and I hadn't been intimate as frequently in recent years, but I thought that was normal for a long-term relationship. Now I wonder if he was getting his needs met elsewhere all along. The hardest part is seeing how this is affecting the kids, even though they don't know the full story yet. Delilah keeps asking when Dad is coming home. Tom has become withdrawn and moody. I'm trying to keep things as normal as possible for them, but it's a struggle just to get through each day myself. I've always prided myself on being strong and independent. I have a good career, close friends, loving family. But right now I feel like my entire life has been a lie. The future I thought I had has evaporated. At 39, I'm facing the prospect of being a single mother and starting over. It's terrifying. Any advice on how to move forward would be appreciated. How do I tell my kids that their father betrayed us all? How do I face Zoe's parents and our wider social circle? Should I give Mark another chance for the sake of our family, or is what he's done unforgivable? I'm totally lost on how to handle this mess. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for the supportive comments and messages. They've been a lifeline during this nightmare. After much agonizing, I decided to tell Delilah and Tom the truth about why their dad moved out. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. I sat them down after dinner one night and tried to explain as gently as possible. Delilah immediately burst into tears. She was devastated and furious, alternating between sobbing and yelling. She couldn't believe her dad would do this, especially with her best friend. Tom just sat there in stunned silence for a long time before getting up and locking himself in his room. In the days since, Delilah has been on an emotional roller coaster. She immediately blocked Zoe on all social media and said she never wants to speak to her again. She's been having trouble sleeping and I've caught her crying in her room several times. She's also lashing out at me sometimes, asking why I didn't know what was happening and stop it. It breaks my heart that she's in so much pain. Tom has been harder to read. He's become very quiet and withdrawn. He's struggling to reconcile the image of his dad, who coached his teams and taught him to fish, with what he's done. He's stopped talking about his upcoming baseball season, which he was so excited about before. Mark was supposed to be an assistant coach this year. I also reached out to Zoe's parents to let them know what had been going on. I invited them over one evening after the kids were in bed. They were shocked and horrified. Lisa, Zoe's mom, broke down crying. John, her dad, just kept shaking his head in disbelief. Apparently Zoe had been lying to them about where she was going and who she was with for months. They thought she was at study group or volunteering when she was really meeting up with Mark. Zoe's parents said they had noticed some changes in her behavior lately, mood swings, secretiveness, spending more time on her phone. But they chalked it up to normal teenage stuff. They never imagined something like this. They've grounded Zoe indefinitely and are looking into therapy options. Lisa hugged me for a long time before they left, both of us crying. Mark is still staying with his brother. He keeps trying to contact me to apologize and beg for another chance. He's sent long emails detailing how sorry he is, how he'll do anything to fix this. He's offered to go to rehab, saying he has a sex addiction. I'm not entertaining any of it right now. My lawyer advised me to only communicate through her for the time being. The most disturbing development came when I was going through our home office, gathering financial documents for the divorce. I found a locked drawer in Mark's desk that I had never noticed before. It took me a while, but I finally managed to pick the lock. What I found inside made me sick to my stomach. There was a bunch of printed out conversations between Mark and other young women. Some seemed to be from dating apps where he was clearly lying about his age and marital status. He had whole fake personas set up, claiming to be a 28-year-old bachelor in one, a divorced dad in his 30s in another. But the worst part was realizing he had been messaging other friends of Delilah's, trying to start inappropriate conversations. There were Facebook messages where he complimented their photos or asked about their love lives. Nothing overtly sexual, but definitely crossing lines. It was like he was testing the waters, seeing who might be receptive to more. I turned everything over to my lawyer. She thinks we may have grounds for criminal charges, especially if any of the girls were underage when he was contacting them. I'm sick to my stomach thinking about how long this predatory behavior may have been going on. How many other girls might he have groomed or abused over the years? I'm trying to stay strong for the kids, but some days it's a struggle just to get out of bed. I've started seeing a therapist to help process everything. Delilah is in counseling too. Tom says he doesn't want to talk to anyone yet, but I'm keeping a close eye on him. My parents have been amazingly supportive through all of this. They're furious at Mark and keep offering to come stay with us to help out. I might take them up on it soon. It would be nice to have some extra support around the house. Work has been a welcome distraction. My principal has been understanding about me needing some time off, but being in the classroom helps me feel normal for a few hours. My students' energy and enthusiasm is a bright spot in otherwise dark days. I know I have a long road ahead, but I'm committed to protecting my children and rebuilding our lives without Mark. Some days I still can't believe this is really happening. How did we go from planning our 20th anniversary trip to this? But then I remember those awful texts and photos, and I know there's no going back. Update 2. Another few weeks have passed and things continue to be difficult, but I'm taking it one day at a time. The divorce proceedings are moving forward. My lawyer is pushing for full custody given Mark's predatory behavior. So far, he hasn't fought it. I think he knows how bad it would look if all the evidence came out in court. We're still negotiating the financial settlement. Mark's lawyer is trying to argue that his infidelity shouldn't impact the asset division, but given the circumstances, my lawyer thinks we have a strong case for me getting a larger share. Zoe reached out to me through her parents, saying she wanted to apologize and explain herself. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet with her mom present. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Zoe broke down crying almost immediately, saying Mark had been grooming her for years, complimenting her, buying her small gifts, making her feel special and grown-up. She said things turned physical shortly before her 18th birthday. Listening to Zoe describe how Mark manipulated her made me feel sick. She said he would tell her how mature she was for her age, how he'd never met anyone who understood him like she did. He convinced her their love was special and that someday they could be together openly. It was textbook grooming behavior. I still feel anger towards Zoe, but mostly I just feel sad for her. She's clearly a victim in all this too. I encouraged her parents to get her into trauma counseling. I don't think Delilah will ever be able to forgive her, but I hope Zoe can heal and move forward eventually. Delilah is still struggling. Her grades have slipped and she's become withdrawn from her other friends. She quit the dance team she's been on for years. I'm doing my best to support her, but I know her world has been shattered. She did agree to start seeing the school counselor, which I hope will help. I've also been looking into support groups for teens dealing with parental infidelity. Tom has been acting out, skipping school, getting into fights. When I tried to talk to him about it, he exploded, saying he hates Mark and wishes he wasn't his dad. I'm looking into some father-son mentoring programs, hoping to find Tom a positive male role model. His baseball coach has been great, making extra time to work with Tom one-on-one. As for me, I'm throwing myself into work and the kids. I've started volunteering at a local women's shelter on weekends, which has been cathartic in a way. Helping other women who have been through trauma gives me a sense of purpose. It's also a stark reminder that as bad as my situation is, it could be worse. I'm grateful to have the resources and support to leave Mark and start over. Mark continues to try to contact me and the kids. I've blocked him on everything and instructed the kids to do the same. His brother called to say Mark is drinking heavily and talking about hurting himself. I told him to get Mark help, but that I can't be involved. I feel some guilt about that, but I know I need to focus on myself and the kids right now. My parents came to stay for a week, which was a huge help. My dad fixed some things around the house that had been neglected lately. My mom cooked big family dinners and spent time with the kids. It was nice to have their support, but also bittersweet. Seeing them together after 45 years of marriage was a reminder of what I thought I had with Mark. It's a daily struggle, but I'm determined to come out the other side of this stronger. My focus is on healing myself and my children. We're making new traditions, family movie nights, trying new recipes together. Slowly but surely, we're finding our new normal. Update 3. It's been about 2 months since this nightmare began. I wish I had better news to report, but unfortunately things have taken another dark turn. Last week, I was contacted by the police. Apparently one of Delilah's other friends came forward with allegations against Mark. She's only 15. I feel physically ill thinking about it. The girl, who I'll call Rachel, said Mark had been sending her inappropriate messages for months. He even tried to get her to meet him alone once, but she got scared and made an excuse. The police are investigating and have asked to interview Delilah and Tom. My lawyer is helping navigate that process. We're trying to minimize the trauma for the kids while still cooperating with the investigation. Delilah was devastated to learn one of her friends was also victimized. She keeps saying she feels guilty for not realizing what was happening. Mark was arrested but is currently out on bail. His family scraped together the money to get him released. He showed up at our house last night, drunk and belligerent. He was yelling about how I've ruined his life and turned the kids against him. I had to call the police to remove him. We now have a restraining order in place. The story has started to spread around our community. Some people have been incredibly supportive. Neighbors have dropped off meals and offered to help with the kids. But others are already victim blaming and defending Mark. I overheard someone at the grocery store saying the girls must have led him on. It makes me furious. Delilah overheard some kids at school gossiping about it and had a breakdown in the bathroom. One of her teachers called me to come pick her up. She's now doing online classes from home for the time being. I hate that she feels she can't even go to school, but I understand why it's too much right now. Tom has shut down completely. He barely speaks and spends most of his time in his room gaming. I've tried to talk to him, but he just grunts one-word answers. His grades are slipping and he's stopped attending baseball practice. I'm at a loss for how to reach him. I'm considering finding a male therapist, thinking he might open up more to a man. I'm trying to stay strong, but some days it feels impossible. The constant stress and heartbreak is taking its toll. I've lost weight and am having trouble sleeping. Every time my phone rings, I brace for more bad news. I find myself jumping at small noises and feeling anxious in crowds. But I refuse to let Mark destroy our lives any further. I'm in therapy twice a week now and have joined a support group for betrayed spouses. It helps to talk to others who understand. I'm also trying to take better care of myself physically, going for walks, doing yoga, eating healthier. On my therapist's advice, I've started journaling to process my emotions. The divorce should be finalized soon. I don't care about money or possessions anymore. I just want it to be over so we can truly begin to heal and move forward. My lawyer thinks the criminal investigation will strengthen our case for me getting full custody and a larger financial settlement. But honestly, I'd give up every penny just to erase this whole nightmare. I'm trying to focus on the future. Once the divorce is final, I'm thinking of moving to a new town for a fresh start. It might be good for the kids to get away from all the gossip and painful memories. I've started looking at job postings in nearby cities. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time. Some days are better than others. I try to find small moments of joy, Tom cracking a smile at a dumb joke, Delilah getting excited about a college brochure that came in the mail. It's not much, but it's something to hold on to.